Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Human Beauty Movement podcast. My name is Jennifer Norman, founder of the Human Beauty Movement and your host. The Human Beauty Movement is a social lifestyle platform dedicated to inspiring radical inclusion, true holistic wellness, and environmental sustainability in our world. We are a human collective that connects to inspire diverse modalities of self-expression, personal growth, and individual journeys of self-love. I created this podcast to have open conversations about all aspects of the human experience. When we're curious, kind, and courageous, we evolve powerfully as individuals and thrive as a human race. Take a moment now to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. I'm so glad that you're here joining me for today's show. Over the course of my life, I have had more than my fair share of body acceptance issues. When I was younger, growing up in the 80s, I compared myself to all those stick-thin supermodels who were 6 feet tall, 100 pounds. And then in the 90s, I compared myself to Pamela Anderson with her blonde bombshell voluptuousness. I would look in the mirror and I just felt short, fat, and ugly. Enter the weighing myself 10 times a day, enter the eating disorders, enter the liposuctions and boob job and shopping binges to fashion my body into something else. Something I hoped would make me feel better about myself. But you know what happened instead? I became hyper self-conscious about my appearance, hyper insecure about my lack of waist, my lack of thigh gap. I lived in Manhattan and I walked 17 blocks to work every day in 3-inch heels, even in the snow, because I refused commuter shoes because they were just way too tacky. I judged others, but to tell the truth, I judged myself the worst. It took decades, and I'm proud to say I've since come to be far more accepting of myself. Not entirely, but that is the work. It's okay to know that I'm not there yet, and that's why being in a community with incredible humans such as my next guest is so important. Let me introduce you to Susie Taaffe. Susie is a woman who is at the forefront of the anti-shapewear movement. She has dedicated her life to empowering women to embrace their natural form, reject unnatural beauty standards, and celebrate their unique and beautiful bodies. As such, Susie is the founder and CEO of Skanties Anti-Shapewear. You could say that Susie is striving to reshape the way women express their feminine power through their fashion choices as she encourages every woman to love herself from the inside out. I can't wait for our conversation. Welcome, Susie.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm so passionate to be here talking with you about all of this.
I am so passionate to talk with you, particularly because of your Australian accent. No, just kidding. I know. Where in Australia are you? Can you tell our guests?
I'm in Brisbane, which is sort of north of Sydney.
I am so jelly and I want to visit there someday. I haven't been to Australia yet, but it is definitely on my bucket list.
It's worth the long flight, I promise you.
I know.
Your listeners, Noosa is on your bucket list.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Now, I know that you have a story to tell. Before you started your wonderful company, you were an engineer and you ended up in fashion design. How does that happen?
Well, I don't know, actually. I do know because I did it. But I started off in engineering and I was doing the most exciting job of extracting waste metals out of solutions. And I found two things. I hated that. And B, I'm super allergic to metals.
Oh, gosh.
So literally my body was physically rejecting this job.
Wow.
And so I decided to go into a Master's of Finance. I thought maybe I could do the finance side of engineering because I like the business side of it. And then that propelled me into a maternity clothing manufacturing career with my sister in our 20s. And we hadn't been pregnant or had babies. But it was, I think what I liked about the maternity clothing was the fashion side, because I have a really creative side, which is interesting for an engineer, but B, also the adapting things. Like I want that, but it needs to be able to do X, Y, Z. So I really love the challenge of, okay, we need this garment to actually fit a growing body and then come back. Yeah. So it's a lot into my psyche that I love to solve problems in unique, creative ways. So that was in my 20s. So that is a long time ago. Fast forward, we're back into engineering out west, gas compressor station construction, which is like totally out there, but kind of the same as maternity manufacturing if the same logistics and design, etc. And then fast forward that to my divorce. I had 3 young kids, 5, 3, and 1. And that's when I was like, okay, it's my turn to decide what do I do with the rest of my life. And engineering, you can do it. And some people, it might make your heart sing. But for me, it wasn't. And I wanted to do something that actually brought me joy. Yeah. So I was probably lucky that I came across that when I was 35, came across the crossroads. So I also should mention my ex-husband went bankrupt after we got divorced. So I had 3 young kids and no money. So I thought, let's start a business.
It's funny because I remember coming out of college, it was the time where like America Online, AOL was really big. And so everybody was like, yeah, you've got to go into IT. It's the big thing. And so I ended up going into local and wide area networking. And I was like, this is just sucking the life out of my soul. It's just like, yeah, sometimes you have to go through it and realize this is not what I really want to do with all of the hours of my day. So yeah, we all find out the hard way, I think, sometimes. What works for us.
I know, but I suppose as you get older, you can see with hindsight that there is no wasted time and that all the paths you walk always will lead you to where you need to be. And you've actually gathered all your information along the way. And so you're sort of picking out bits and pieces that you don't realize you're doing at the time. And then you use them all later on.
Right.
You can sort of look back and see, oh, I see why I had to do all of that to get to here now.
It's so true. No experience is wasted. The tenaciousness, it builds up resilience and it lets you know that you can put up with going through those details that you need to as an entrepreneur. There was a reason for that experience and it helped to guide you and get you to a place where, yeah, now I can actually oversee people who need to do this. Or I understand, hey, heavy metals, there's something that's really not very good about that. And I know that we're going to get there in a moment. But first, we have to talk about the juicy stuff, your relationship, because you just mentioned you went through a divorce. What happened?
So we were the sort of together since we were 20. I had that inner knowing that just for me, I needed to have the kids. I was so maternal. I wanted to have the kids. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have kids. And it was like an inner driving force. Then I got the kids and I was working at the same time and I was sort of at home a bit with them. And I realized, okay, I've got the kids, but I thought I wanted to be this stay-at-home mom, etc. But no, I did not. It was like, I love the kids, but actually I'm a better person when I get to share their care, especially 3 toddlers, like under 3.5. It was a lot. So I was like, yeah, I think I'm a better person when I get to share their care. Anyway, fast forward, I think they were about 4, 2 and a baby. And my ex-husband went on a trip overseas to Las Vegas, actually. And when he flew back, I just energy had shifted. Like there was just something had clicked and changed. And I was like, I could feel it. Like I could physically feel the energy shift.
Yeah.
And so we probably spent a year pretending like it wasn't the end and it was like trying to claw it back. And that's when I actually got guided to a spiritual counselor who started to open my eyes to the whole spiritual world. So I suppose that was the beginning of my spiritual awakening, as they call it. But I learned a few really good things in the very beginning, which I think helped to frame my mind for the next part of the actual divorce, was that children choose their parents. So they come onto this earth to choose their experience. So
Amen. Yeah.
the first thing you go is, oh, what about the kids? We are the last generation that is going to stick it out unhappily for the kids, in inverted commas. So learning that they chose to have this experience in whatever form or shape that was going to take. So offloading that guilt about because it's such a generational belief, isn't it, to stay together for the kids.
Yeah,
so
sacrifice, the idea of sacrifice.
And the martyr. And the
martyrdom.
Yes,
I'm
completely.
going to do it because I love my kids so much and we have to. Yeah.
When in actual fact, doing the harder role is also loving them as well, to show them a happy, adjusted mother that actually doesn't just suffer, because it's really interesting how they're little sponges. So if they see you suffering and putting yourself last, that's just teaching them that's what they're worth as well, that they need to suffer and put themselves last. So I think they really absorb what we model to them. It might not be the words we say, but they physically absorb what energy we're putting forward. So that was the number one learning. And then the number 2 learning was, no matter what happens within a relationship, we're each equal 50% in how it got there. So again, taking that martyrdom and the victim away when things happen to you, they aren't really happening to you. You have both contributed 50-50 to get to that place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think taking ownership of that, and so not falling into that victim and blame cycle, I think is a really strong, powerful move that you can make in those early days. And I think putting that on the shelf and just like, actually, no, I'm in my power here. I was 50% of the path to get here, and I'm going to stand in that. And then I move forward without the blame and the victim mentality.
It's so true. I know that for me, I sat in the woe is me victim position really, really long time. And it wasn't until I really shook myself out of it and was like, I don't want to live like this. I really want to be happy. I want to live my life. I don't want this pain to be what my story is. I want to be the one that moves forward and thrives. And it's not really even revenge. It's not like the revenge bot or revenge anything. It's really about just living for you rather than being beholden to your past suffering. And recognizing taking ownership is so important. Realizing, I think a lot of people are very, very commonly saying, oh, it was this person's fault, or it was that person's fault, or they did this to me, and really not reflecting on how they contributed to that situation. You're exactly right. And when you are able, and it's not easy, I know a lot of people struggle with this, is like, how can I be to blame if he was cheating on me? You have to really reflect on what was it that really caused that. And certainly there are things that you put up with. And so there's contributions from that aspect. It's like, okay, if you're not going to say anything, you're just going to keep yourself quiet, then that's also contributing. It's enabling in a certain way. But that might be a whole other podcast. But very important as a setup for what we're talking about. Yeah. I want to talk about then. All right. So you and your sister were in maternity clothing. And so what was this aha moment for when you decided to take on shapewear? Like, what was it that really caused you to say, you know what, I want to do something different? So there's other solutions out there that have really still kind of kept ourselves in this state of we've got to fit in, right? And I want to do something different.
Well, at the end, when we were just getting out of maternity clothing, I actually was like, I just needed something. It was hot. I live in Queensland. It's super hot here. I travel a lot to Asia, which is also super hot. I was getting a bit more stylish. I love to wear flowy dresses. I have a pear-shaped. Flowy skirts and dresses really suit me. And I would get terrible chafe. So I was like, I just need something that feels really comfortable that I can just put on and then forget I'm wearing it. So it had to sort of tick a few boxes. I absolutely loathe when elastic digs in. So say like, stockings or something, and then all the skin. I've had 3 kids, so I have a lot of skin, but it goes over the top of it. And I just think when you've got like lines and bumps and things digging in, the negative chatter begins, like the cycle. The same with if your thighs are rubbing together and it's painful. It never puts that positive cycle in your mind, does it? It instantly it brings up all the I'm not enough. I don't have thigh gap. Yes. Where's my thigh gap? Why is this painful? You never feel thin when you have chafe. I needed a tool to make that stop and go away. I made something for myself, and I just wore them for years and years and years and didn't think anything of it, because this was 2008. Back then, we didn't have body positive influences. We didn't have people talking about side chafing is normal. We didn't have we didn't have the platforms. So it wasn't talked about with my friends. And eventually I had a couple of friends say, oh, well, how do you not get chafe? I see you in dresses all the time. Are you wearing bike pants or leggings? And I was like, no, we're actually wearing these. So I made a few for them. And then that was what got my head. I was like, there's actually a commercial viability with this product. It didn't even occur to me that other people would have these issues. So that's what actually brought, and then I ended up morphing the design a little bit, because from talking with some of these women, I just used to wear them over a pair of underpants. But some women are really highly susceptible to infections. I had a friend that said, I can't wear synthetic anywhere there. So that made me, using my engineering, as I was talking before, the adaptation sort of thing, I was like, right, okay, I need it to do a few things. I need it to feel like you're wearing nothing. I need it to be fully cotton in every part that is near the sensitive and is absorbing areas. But it needs to be silky and glide. So because cotton on cotton will cling, so it can make it stick. So that's why I use really thin nylon, which was created as a substitute for silk stockings after the war when the silk became rare. So it's got that soft, silky feel. And then remember when yoga pants came out and in the early 2000s, and they were so comfortable? I actually looked into the science why the waistband is so comfortable. And it's because the structural design displaces the pressure around your waist over like a gradual, they're thick and wide. So instead of it coming down into a short, like 1 or 2 centimeter band, it's displaced the pressure over so I did over 6 centimeters. So it means you get a smooth line without it being tight. So while shapewear is trying to squeeze you into something, my idea behind anti-shapewear is your form is actually beautiful exactly as you are. If you can just sculpt it in its natural shape and feel comfortable at the same time, that shape is good enough. I'm really perplexed, even some of the recommendations to wear 2 pairs of shapewear at the moment. You look in the mirror, the difference is so not enough to warrant the pain or the suffocation in my beliefs. So I'm very passionate. And I'm also super passionate about women not having the societal expectation of having a flat washboard stomach. That is probably, I'm not sure what the exact percentage of women has that exact body shape, but I don't think it's super high, especially not the muscular sort of lean one. I think I saw a statistic, 95% of women are unhappy with their body in some way.
Yeah.
And only 5% of women have the bodies that they portray in traditional marketing modeling magazines. So I am loving how marketing is evolving. I think it's from consumer demand that we are we don't want to see it on a size 6. The majority of us are not a size 4 or a size 6. We want to see it in a 12 or a 14. And I'm talking in Australian sizes. So a 6 will be your size 2. The 0 to 2s, we don't want to see it on that. But that is not going to give us any indication what it's going to look like on us. So I think consumers are driving that positive change, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think that the average in the US where I am, the average woman is a size 14 and over 175 pounds. And so it was completely unrealistic. We have come a long way, but yes, there are a lot of shapewear companies that are making a whole lot of money. And it's because a lot of people do still perceive that they want to still have some sort of an hourglass figure that has still some reflection of what we would consider an ideal shape. And I actually, this year was the very first, I was a holdout, man. I hadn't bought shapewear at all. And then this year I actually was officiating a wedding and I decided to give it a try. And I was like, I can't believe how hard these things are to get up. And it's it was not easy and it was not very comfortable, to your point. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have gastric issues after I finish. Can you talk about some of the issues, either with the material that a lot of shapewear is, or about doing that to your body for an extended period of time? I know that you've studied that, right?
Well, it's completely terrible. If you think about what's going on, and so many of us have digestion and stomach issues already, let alone going and putting a constricting, suffocating, tight sausage casing on top of you. I don't think people actually realize that shapewear are actually special occasion wear if you can tolerate them. They're not designed to be worn every day. I think, I'm not sure if you saw recently in the news, but Adele was wearing Spanx at her residency in Las Vegas. And she has gotten a terrible fungal infection because they don't breathe. And she just said, she literally was quoted saying, I'm literally standing in a pool of my own sweat. So they are incredibly dangerous for our bodies. And we have also all of our reproductive organs are down there. We have how you feel if you're bloating or something, and it's painful. And if you put tight things on your stomach, often, well, I don't ever wear them, but you get that if I sometimes have a tight, even a waistband, just the tight waistband part, and I get cramps and pains in my stomach. So it's really, really, really dangerous. You get bad circulation. You can get pins and needles from them. And then don't even get me started on corsets and waist trainers. I think there's been quite a lot in the news about celebrities wearing them and fainting because of the oxygen supply being cut off.
And it gets to the point of Ozempic, a lot of these drugs that people are taking in order to be thinner. And granted, I know that there are some folks that have medically obese situations. And so there may be a need, or it might be beneficial. But if it's cosmetic, if it's more not necessarily health, but more for appearance, then it draws into question why. I mean, does it make you happier? Are you doing it for you? Are you doing it for somebody else? And that the idea of living comfortably and not having pain, not having chafing, not having things go wrong and fungal infections or a lack of breathability. I mean, we want to do things that are healthy from a mental perspective, from an emotional perspective, and from a physical perspective. And so it's always good to do a little bit of an inventory on the things that you're doing, on your lifestyle, what you've surrounded with, those choices that we're making that might be for the good of somebody else. Or are they really helping you and your welfare and your well-being? So I think it's a very good question for us all, for sure. I'm curious, like, I know that you talk about being anti-shapewear. And is that really why? Is it because I think that there was something from your personal journey as well that you felt like this is important to, like, maybe it was because of your divorce or the way things had occurred out of that as something that really catalyzed you in your mission to do this and help other women feel that they could be empowered in their own femininity. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, definitely, because I think that what we relate so much is if we fix our internal world, the external world will follow, I think. So this passion of, if I can, so in my mindset, when I had that epiphany of it was literally on the day that I found out we'd lost everything. And I was like, okay, it was as clear as anything. And it was probably the craziest route I could take. But I'm going to turn this product I've got into an enormous business. And I am going to make it my passion project to actually serve women, to flick that negative chatter into positive chatter. And the product is really just a tool, one tool for that. So really, it's like an excuse to get out there and actually talk about all of the other things that help us shift our internal world. So that's just to turn off the chatter so you can put them on and then you just forget about that part of your life and you can move on about your day. But it's sort of training our brains to catch ourselves, and basically you're rewiring the way you thought and rewiring all that negative chatter that we've been brought up with. And it's our parents' generation and their generation, like they were only teaching us what they heard. And I think that, I hope that our generation is going to be the one that's going to change the dialogue in our heads. I have 3 kids, so I've got 2 daughters and a son, and I'm so mindful of my energy around body, my energy around foods and eating, and it's all about what's going to give you good energy. And if they eat junk food, I'm like, that's your choice, as long as you're aware and listen to what does your body do after you've eaten that. Do you like? And just teaching them that there is no good or bad. It's all, you've got to listen to your body. You've got to listen to how you feel with things, because I think it's terrible. Like, I grew up crash dieting. I've done every single diet under the sun. You name it. I've done it. I can count calories. I can count carbs.
Who did it?
I've done it because, like, what do they call it? Exercise bulimia or whatever it is, where you and you trade off whatever you've eaten for punishment on the pounding the streets, etc. So I was just sick of it. I was just like, I don't want my daughters to have this in their heads. You would understand the obsessive
turns you into a crazy person.
Cycle. Crazy person. And it's really hard to, you still have to it's a lifelong, I think. Well, maybe, I don't know, by the time I'm 60 or 70, hopefully it will be, I will have really reversed it. But you still have to catch yourself all the time and flick the perspective and flick the perspective. And so for them, I just never wanted them to get onto that treadmill. That's what it is, really. It's like a mouse wheel, a treadmill that you can't get off of.
Yeah.
And so my passion is, if I can do this with all the other mothers in the world and share that messaging, then we can break it generationally. We can break this shame cycle that we've all lived through with our children, and then hopefully we can break it forever.
Girl, you should have done a licensing deal with the Barbie movie. We get so accustomed to habit and the way things are, and just thinking, we have a lack of consciousness about some of the things that we do and why we do them. And does it really bring you joy? Is it comfortable? Is it something that is really helping in longevity and happiness and all of those things? Or is it to try to snag the man? Is it to try to get into the group of friends? Is it all of those things are like giving your power away? But when you can really come back to that sense of you knowing who you are and what's important to you. I love that with your brand, with Skanties, you are really truly fostering more of a movement rather than the product. The product is like one of those things which is symbolic of a choice, of a lifestyle, of you really getting to that place of self-love. It's about the beauty from inside, is it not?
Oh, definitely, 100%. The product's really just to turn off the chatter. It's sort of like you put it on and then you just don't think about it. It switches that off, because I've just been really digging into lately how much pressure we put on our 3D self to make up for all of our internal insecurities.
Yeah.
It seems like we channel it into like the body. Like if you feel like you've been bad or whatever, cheat, like, I don't know, had a blowout or whatever, what's the first thing you do is channel it into your body. You channel that Monday morning, right, okay, I'm eating clean, I'm going to the gym, I'm doing all, but instead of that, we need to change our perspective. It's like, how about we channel that into fixing our soul and healing our soul? So instead of like we know, like, well, that for me is I am shifting from the, okay, right, green juices or whatever it is, gym, I'm going to eat this, I'm not going to drink alcohol, I'm not going to blah, blah, blah. Instead of, okay, Monday morning, what can I do today if I'm feeling like that to nurture my soul? Because if we focus on nurturing our soul first, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, if you're drinking that green juice because you know that it's nourishing and that you feel so good, it's giving you like living energy, you're going raw or whatever. And granted, I'm a card-carrying carnivore. I mean, I'm just like, I love my red meat. I will do that. But I understand that I've been able to listen to my body. I know how my body reacts if I have too much sugar. And it's like, I wish that I was listening to my body earlier, and then I would have been so not hangry with everybody around me for all of those years.
You probably needed a steak, and then you wouldn't have had the sugar. It's interesting. You needed a steak.
I was just drinking orange juice and having a bagel in the morning, and not understanding all the carbs and the sugar, what it was doing to me, and it was just a mess. And so it's like understanding and listening and being aware of what's working for you and how you feel, how your body feels, how you're reacting to it, and just being attuned to that. Because I've definitely sense that it's not necessarily the action itself, it's the intention beneath that action. Like two people can be doing exactly the same thing, but they can be doing it for completely different reasons. One could be giving their power away, and the other person is it's serving them. So you can't really look at anybody else for an example of how to live your life. You got to do it yourself.
Definitely not. And I've also started, if you eat the hamburger, you say, thank you, hamburger. And I'm enjoying every bit of this hamburger and enjoy the hamburger and say, that was fantastic. That was the best burger I've had in ages. Thank you, burger.
Yeah, thank you for the ability to eat this burger. Thank you for the life
of eating this burger.
Yeah,
exactly. And when it's from your intention. If you come from the intention, like, this green juice is lighting me up from the insides. When you come from that soul filling instead of like the whipped tracking, you can do exactly. I reckon that you would have like
I live in Los
self.
Angeles. It's like, okay, everybody is doing it. We're gonna go to Press Juice and get our $10 juice, and like, no. That's not it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it's funny because there's so much news now about blue zones. And I know that it's been so many years in the making, but now it's really blowing up because there's a Netflix series on in the US about it now. And really the idea of taking the time to enjoy present moment, like you said, gratitude for the food, understanding where it comes from, really just giving reverence and honor to those things, honoring the body. It's like our bodies do so much freaking for us. We forget and we take for granted what miracles our bodies are and how much our bodies do for us. And we spend so much of our time hating on our bodies, trying to force it into a certain way, trying to make it look a certain way, not being happy with it because it doesn't look like something else. And rather than saying, it's like lately I've been going on nature walks and being like, thank you that I can actually walk. Thank you that I can actually breathe and have this moment and see the trees and breathe the air. And just like those things just fill me with joy and really help me to come alive. And I mean, it's different for everybody. Everybody's way to finding their own inner sense of gratitude and joy is different. And having those moments of appreciation really is what life is about now. It's not about the suffering. It's not about the trying to get through the day so you can get through the weekend. And really, it's like, I think that what Susie is saying is exactly right. It's like, having these things in our lives that are reflections of our own inner beauty is true. It's very true. I mean, if you look around you and you look at your environment, if you look at your relationships, it tells you very much about what's going on in your priorities inside. And so, let's all really take a quiet moment to honor the fact that we're together here today. I mean, Susie's a across the world from me, and I get a chance. What a divine moment this is, that the universe brought us together to have this conversation, and that we are two souls built of stardust that are, just really energetically on the same wavelength with each other and are helping to share our message of inner beauty and light to you. And so, yeah, I'm just so honored to be able to have this discussion, Susie. Thank you for the work that you've done, everything that has manifested for you up until this moment to bring you to what is our conversation today. I appreciate you so very much.
Oh, I have absolutely loved being able to talk today. And how good is technology? Let's have some gratitude for technology.
Yay,
that we can
gratitude
like
for technology to be able
Thank
to
you
meet.
so much, Jennifer, and for having created such an amazing podcast, which is just so aligned with everything that I believe and is in my heart. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart as well.
It is my honor. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Human Beauty Movement podcast. Be sure to follow, rate, and review us wherever you stream podcasts. The Human Beauty Movement is a community-based platform that cultivates the beauty of humankind. Check out our workshops, find us on social media, and share our inspiration with all the beautiful humans in your life. Learn more at thehumanbeautymovement.com. Thank you so much for being a beautiful human.